You should start a YouTube channel. This was something that was presented to me, or at least pitched to me, many times by a good friend of mine, another YouTuber. Some of you may know him. I figure most of you may not, as our audiences don't have a ton of bleed over, but his name is Chad Zimmerman, a very good friend of mine. And he, for years, you know, we'd meet up after school and, you know, play Dungeons and Dragons, and he got his YouTube channel started, I want to say in like 2014 or 2015. And he got, you know, pretty successful. I think he's floating around like 20,000 subscribers as of recording. But for years and years, we would always say, like, Chad, you know, like, we got ideas for YouTube videos. And he'd say, that's great. It doesn't really fit in with my channel. So you should start your own channel. And we kind of didn't really understand what he was trying to get at, of like, well, you have the channel and we've got ideas. Let's just pitch, you know, YouTube videos to you and kind of go from there. And I'm here to tell you that that's kind of not the way to do it. The way to do it is not to wait until you know someone who has some success with creating YouTube videos and then just pitch ideas to them. No. You should get yourself a cheap camera and even your phone. Stick it on, you know, the cheap Amazon Basics $20 stand, and try and record yourself making a YouTube video, no matter how uninteresting or bad it is, no matter how low the quality is, no matter how comfortable you are being in front of a camera. And you should just try it and see where that goes. I've got a note page here open on my phone just so I can kind of bullet point this. So you should start a YouTube channel. Now, why should you start a YouTube channel? I think YouTube is one of those places where you can kind of be creatively open to a lot of really interesting and cool ideas, and a lot of content creators will kind of tell you the same thing. You can kind of try a lot and have fairly low consequences for if you miss something up, with the exception of if you're like already a really big channel and you've been caught, like, you know, doing something like plagiarizing, like the H-bomber guy video, going in on some of those people. So basically, like, worst case scenario is you get some traction going, and then over time people kind of notice that maybe you're not doing the most ethical kind of video creation. But other than that, it is pretty straightforward and kind of allows you to just sort of wiggle in to a weird creative niche that doesn't necessarily compare to anything else on any other platforms. And I don't say that as like YouTube is some kind of catch-all, like this is the place to be. I know there's a lot of Twitch creators and streamers, and YouTube isn't necessarily the place for people who want to just kind of have attention at all times. Anyway, where was I? Why should you start a YouTube channel? Before you start making YouTube videos, you should probably think to yourself, or at least have an idea of what kind of content you'd like to make. So the idea for On the Flip Side, when I first started, was not for a YouTube channel at all. Before I started ever doing the YouTube channel, On the Flip Side was meant to be an idea for a radio show. But I don't have any connections to any kind of radio stations, any kind of radio hosts. I have none of that. But the base idea would be to have a guest on, have a record playing, talk about the album beforehand, play side A of the record, have a little discussion, and then play side B of the record and have another discussion, kind of conclusion. And it was going to be this essentially vinyl-focused show for the radio. And I just couldn't ever get any traction with it, because if you don't have any connections to that industry, you're not gonna go anywhere with it. The next best thing that I thought was starting a YouTube channel and starting that. And if you go back to my very earliest videos, it's all vinyl record reviews. It's only physical format. It's only what I owned. And I thought that was a good start. And I think for a lot of people, it was somewhat interesting, a somewhat fresh take on reviewing records, reviewing albums, talking about music in general, promoting physical media as a format. And I love doing it to a certain extent, but what I realized is that if I had any kind of record that I was reviewing, it was something I already owned for the most part, which means I probably was biased towards enjoying it or liking it. So I would ask people that I knew, like, hey, would you lend me records that I might not have the easiest time with, or that I might not necessarily like a ton? And that sort of worked for a little while. It sort of supplemented things, but it sort of turned into this numbers game. because something new coming out would always get more traction than an album that's, say, 20, 30 years old, 5 years old, a week old. So I'm not saying you should necessarily get into YouTube as a route to success, because that's silly. Once I switched over to doing new music reviews, like new albums that were coming out, I think the passion just sort of ebbed and flowed a lot more. There was a lot more moments where I was wondering why exactly I was listening to something, and, you know, there's only really so many ways you can say you're lukewarm on a record that people will want to pay attention to. Where are we at? So every channel kind of goes through this evolutionary process. You have like sort of a main initial idea, and then you're going to kind of evolve over time to get to a certain point where you are either very enthusiastic about what you're putting out and you're very excited to do it, which I did reach for a certain point, or there's going to be a certain point where you're like, what am I doing? Like, why is this the thing that is getting me views, but I'm not happy making it? I know we're on these like weird bullet points. This is definitely a lot more of a rant proper than I was expecting, but we're getting there. So yes, picking your content is a very important thing to kind of figure out. Like really, really think about what you want to make. Like it doesn't really matter that much. Like just pick something that is a good start, because it's going to change over time anyway. That is kind of the whole point of YouTube, is that you kind of throw stuff at the wall. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. This rant video, I'm assuming, is probably not going to get too much traction, but I think for a purpose of logging this for myself and sort of logging my own thoughts at the time of recording, that being, what is it, like May 2024, I think just kind of keeping a log of my thoughts at this point in my creative process is kind of interesting and something I can look back on. If you guys find this stuff interesting too, that's great. Leave it in the comments and let me know what you think. Haha, engagement. Anyway, where have I been? I have like 1,800 subscribers at the time of recording, which is fairly significant, but it's also not exactly a large channel. I haven't uploaded a On the Flip Side review since I think the last Travis Scott record came out in like July of last year. So it's been like 10 months, something like that. It's been quite a while. And kind of getting back to what I was talking about with experiencing some loss in motivation with my own projects, we got creative burnout and exhaustion is a real thing. Like, it's a very real thing. After a certain point, if your YouTube videos are something that you're really enjoying making, great. You know, that's kind of the goal, is to be really stoked on what you're making, really happy with what you're making. And then exhaustion can kind of happen. It doesn't necessarily need to coincide with burnout. You don't have to experience burnout and exhaustion at the same time. Sometimes you need a little bit of a break, and then you can come back and do exactly what you're doing a couple of weeks later, a month later, even a whole year later. But I think creative burnout is a much more detrimental thing, because you can kind of tell towards the last little chunk of my upload cycle, I don't think my heart was really in it as much. There's kind of a meta when it comes to music reviews and album reviews especially. Essentially, if you are not a large channel with a very large following, say The Needle Drop or any number of other larger music channels above like, say, like 10,000 or 100,000 subscribers, if you're like one of these smaller channels, the meta is kind of to just get your review up absolutely first thing. So what a lot of the time it turned into was me frantically searching for a leak of a brand new album so I had more time to actually listen to it before getting a review up. And let me tell you, listening to a record just to kind of force yourself to have thoughts on it and not like actually have time to sit with it is really frustrating. And yes, you can kind of put up these reviews after the fact, maybe like a week later, but your success is kind of not guaranteed. And you need to really, I don't want to say like stack the cards or game the system, because that is kind of an unfair thing, but the sooner your review goes up, if you're the only review up of it, that's what people are going to see first. So your review will get more views initially, and then bam, 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 you are going to be at the top of the search results until someone like Anthony Fantano uploads their version of a review, which will automatically end up above yours. But YouTube's meta is that either you have to already be a very large channel or you have to get your thing up first. And this is not necessarily just for music reviews. I'm assuming it's pretty similar for a lot of movie reviews and other media reviews as well. It's kind of like if you're a big channel, you're all set. If you're a small channel, you got to kind of weasel your way into getting views as fast and as quickly as possible, which if you look at some of the album reviews that I put up, the quality definitely varies pretty heavily. I think that I got to a pretty good point with album reviews where I was pretty happy with what I was putting up for the most part, but I'm not like an English major. I haven't gone to any kind of formal schooling when it comes to music, when it comes to literary anything. So there's really only so many ways that I personally know how to articulate my thoughts when it comes to album reviews. And after a certain point, you really only have so many words. So people really only liked hearing positivity or negativity, and they didn't really like hearing much of the in-between, like being lukewarm on stuff. And realistically, they really liked the negative reviews. That was what kind of generated the most interest. And then you have your sort of meta YouTube thumbnail where you're doing something like this, or like this, or like this. And it's frustrating to kind of have to play this numbers game on YouTube, where you're kind of trying your best to be the first person up, have the hottest takes, be funny, be interesting, and have something to say. And really, there's not a ton of music that at this point in my life, I feel like I have that much in-depth commentary on that's really worthwhile. And I think there's a lot of self-awareness that people don't quite reach to that point. I think there's a lot of YouTube channels, especially with metal. Metal reviews are like, I don't really know how else to say it, generally bad. There are so many rock and metal review channels that really feed into the hater culture stuff. And I say hater culture like that's like a real thing. It's really a hater meta that works best for YouTube. If you hate something, it's going to generate clicks, it's going to generate comments, it's going to generate any kind of engagement with your video far more than positivity. If you look at my reviews where I'm like, damn, I really liked the record compared to some of the records that I've really hated or have been like, I'm lukewarm on this, but I'm on the negative side, those videos get far more views than any of my positive reviews have. And it just kind of turns into a pissing contest. And it's not fun, really, for anyone. I certainly still stand by a lot of points where I think I disliked a record, but I don't think I agree with the point of throwing that stuff out necessarily when I, as a creator, don't have too much more to say beyond, it stinks and fuck you for listening to it. But, like, not really, because that's what the algorithm wants, is it wants you to kind of crap on people for enjoying something. And at the end of the day, I am kind of a music elitist, but I'm not like 16 anymore. Like, I'm 25 years old, and I just don't have the enthusiasm for just shitting on people for what they listen to necessarily anymore. And I think that maybe I could maintain that if I really had something to say and I was super passionate about it. But being nonchalant and just like crapping on people's music taste just kind of put a sour taste in my mouth. So yes, to kind of try and wrap up this point, where have I been? I've just not been feeling it. And in the meantime, I've kind of gone through a few different job prospects. YouTube, obviously, like I'm monetized. I can make a little bit of money from this, but it's not my main source of income, and it hasn't been pretty much ever. I think I've made a total of like $200 to $300 on this in the 3 to 4 years that I've been making YouTube videos. That's another thing, another point, just a quick tangent. If you are trying to get into YouTube to make money, probably don't. Like, it's really not, like, we're not here for this. Like, if you are incredibly lucky and you are incredibly charismatic and your editing skills are top-notch and there is really a demand for what you are doing and there's not a ton of oversaturated crap videos filling the market and flushing you out, yeah, maybe you can make some videos, but yeah, I was really just not feeling the music reviews as much. I really enjoyed making them to start, and I enjoyed kind of learning how to be on camera and how to speak on a microphone and where to hold things. And you may notice I'm using a lapel mic now because I've watched a bunch of Sam Sulek videos, and I was like, man, you know, that guy, that microphone he's using is pretty good. And apparently the Rode Me is a pretty solid microphone. This is the first video proper that I'm using it for. I did a little demo, but hey, thus far, I'm pleased with it. But the point is, you kind of learn all of this stuff as you're going, and I think that's really one of the more important parts of the whole process, is just learning how to make a YouTube video, learning how to be entertaining on camera, learning how to have an interesting subject, and just sort of trying to have as much fun with it as you can. And so I got to a certain point where I think the fun thing is very important, because I was just not really having fun making these videos anymore. Kind of having to shit out thoughts on these albums. I don't necessarily, frankly, I haven't listened or watched any of my own videos probably in about 10 months. And so I would like to say that I probably still stand beside most of my opinions, but it is funny because I don't actually know. If you could tell me, like, you know, something I said 10 months ago, and sort of contextualize it, oh, it was this album or this album, I might think, damn, I don't even remember thinking that. That's another problem that I kind of have with the sort of shotgun blast throwing up album reviews every day. You can't really have too many great thoughts on stuff when you're trying to upload that often. But yes, I've been gone. In the meantime, I was working a few different retail jobs, a couple of restaurant jobs, and it's been fine. I've been good. I am in a healthy, good living situation now. I just recently moved. But for the most part, my main income right now has been my Reverb store, which I've actually linked in the description on pretty much every one of my YouTube videos since almost since the start. I found that I really just enjoyed kind of cleaning up gear that was really beat. I worked music retail for a while, and one of the things that I definitely enjoyed doing most was cleaning up used gear that was pretty beat up. So going forward on this channel, I think I'm just going to kind of try and work in what I've been doing on a day-to-day basis into the YouTube upload schedule. So at some points here soon, I've got a particularly beat up guitar that I have decided I'm going to record my cleanup process. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be an ASMR kind of situation or if it's like a podcast, but I'm doing something at the same time. I don't really know. The point is, I think I want to just record something and not necessarily be the best or worst at it, but just kind of document what I do on a daily basis, which I guess kind of could be considered blogging, but I don't necessarily want to box myself into like, oh, I just want to upload only videos of me working on music equipment, because I'm sure I'll have some other idea of something to record at some point. But I think the focus of this channel is just going to get a lot more general, and definitely it's going to go further into the way of musical instrument repair. And I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not particularly brilliant when it comes to this kind of stuff, but I can make a guitar play decently enough. So that's kind of been something I've been wanting to get back to for a while. As far as like, oh, what am I going to do when my YouTube channel goes back live? That's kind of been the idea for a little while, of I'm going to just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks again, because that's kind of how this YouTube channel started. So this is my workbench room. You are in my laundry room. My washing machine and dryer are over there. And this is my workbench. And this is the workbench that I've had for a couple of years now. I used to have another workbench at my old home that was built into the wall, but you know, renting's a bitch, so you gotta move. So we're here now. I'm down to one workbench, but it is a good little setup, and it does well enough for what I need it to do. So that's kind of the general thoughts going forward. Gonna be recording some just general repairs and maintenance and sort of cleanups, maybe light modifications on musical instruments. And yeah, if you're interested in checking some of that out, I've got a video probably going up sometime within the next day or two, cleaning up a late 80s, early 90s Korean-made Squire, which is right here. It is, I haven't touched it yet, but I imagine that video should be wrapped up here soonish. Anyway, this has been kind of a longer rant video than I was expecting. One of the reasons that I kind of wanted to switch over to a format like this was kind of to switch from a heavily scripted, I feel less genuine format to something a little more touch and go, a little bit more free form, more bullet points, less specific wording. Something that was a little bit lower stress, not necessarily as heavily edited, and just kind of more enjoyable going forward. So yes, I will more or less be doing mostly this, I think, for the foreseeable future, and I really hope you guys enjoy it, and I very much appreciate the support that On the Flip Side has gotten over the years. It is obviously, like, I think there's close to 200 reviews at this point. Like, there's a lot of videos on this channel. And I really appreciate the people who have stuck around from the beginning, just sort of watching this evolution of this channel go. I think at some point I might touch back on reviews a little bit. I don't necessarily think that I'm going to be doing the full review format. At least I can't see myself doing it again for a while, because damn if I wasn't just like really burnt on it. Now, I do still very much appreciate all of the love and support that I've gotten all the years. I also appreciate the hate. Because, like I said earlier, like I touched on, engagement is engagement, and even if we disagree, I've always kind of tried to be amicable and tried to get conversations started rather than just trying to crap on people for how they feel about music. With the exception of a few videos that I'm sure I'm forgetting because it's been a long time, and you tend to look at things with a rose-colored tint, so if I've been an asshole, sorry, I'm like sure it's happened at least once or twice, maybe even a few more times than that, but to my knowledge, it's been pretty civil unless someone else has been uncivil. But yeah, thank you all again going forward. I very much appreciate the attention and the views that I've gotten over the years, and I really would just like to say, like, thank you to the people going forward who stick around during this kind of weird change, and I hope it's interesting, I hope it's entertaining, and please leave me feedback if you guys want to see more informative stuff, if you guys want me to get really into nitty-gritty details on this stuff. Leave me comments if you notice something that I don't notice, because at the end of the day, what I'm planning on doing, I'm not necessarily an expert on, but I am fairly knowledgeable, and I'm always looking to learn, and I really want to just have a channel going forward that isn't out there to just shit on people. So if you've got stuff that you find interesting, or you think some of the stuff that I get into is going to be interesting, then yeah, stick around and engage in the comments. Let me know what you guys think of this stuff. And yes, thank you all so much again for watching. You can check out my Instagram, my Reverb, and my Depop. Links to all of those are in the description below. God, it's really weird saying this without a script up. It's funny how much you say an outro or an intro and it just gets burned in your brain. So with all of that being said, thank you all very much for watching again, and I will see you wherever the flip side is.